Africa is composed mainly of developing countries, and typically these countries feature birth rates greatly exceeding death rates, contributing to population increases. If this is the case, will the African continent become the population leader by 2100? Let's find out. Right now, Asia is the continent with the highest population, with nearly 4.7 billion people, 59% of the world population. Within the continent is a mixture of still developing and highly developed nations. The still developing nations are seeing population growth, but the highly developed ones aren't, and in some cases are seeing decreases. Highly developed countries are in stage 4 of the demographic transition, the post-industrial phase, which is associated with evening out birth and death rates. Some demographers have said some nations are in a new stage 5, whereas death rates exceed birth rates, such as in Japan and South Korea. And developed Asia isn't the only continent seeing this. Europe, Australia and New Zealand, North America, and parts of South America are seeing the same trends. But one continent, Africa, is seeing the opposite, where internal population numbers are increasing significantly. Much of the continent is in stage 2 of the demographic transition, with very high birth rates and lower death rates. In this week's episode, we are going to explore if Africa will become the leading continent in population by 2100. First, we'll discuss the demographic patterns associated with birth rates, total fertility rates, and internal population increases. Then we'll discuss future changes that will happen within Africa because of the population increase, including physical and human geographical factors. Before we start, if you enjoy the subjects of geography and earth science, you'll enjoy the weekly videos I post. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, Our World, Our Planet, Our Home, to see the latest episodes. Let's get started. Africa is split into 2 distinct areas, North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. North Africa is culturally linked to the Middle East, such as Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt. All of these nations are predominantly Muslim, like the countries of the Middle East. These northernmost nations of Africa are primarily in stage 3 of the demographic transition, as population growth rates have decreased in recent decades. Heading southward, nations such as Mali, Niger, Chad, Sudan, and South Sudan all have population growth rates of more than 2.5%. In fact, South Sudan and Niger have the second and third highest population growth rates in the world, at 4.78% and 3.66% respectively. South of the Sahara Desert, virtually every African nation is seeing internal population growth, with many having increases over 2% a year. Nigeria, Africa's highest populated nation of nearly 231 million people, has a growth rate of 2.53%. If Nigeria continues with a population increase similar to that, it's projected to have over 1 billion people by 2100. Ethiopia and the Democratic Republic of Congo are the 2 other sub-Saharan African nations with over 100 million people, and both have significant population growth rates of 2.6% and 3.3% correspondingly. At their increased rate, both nations are expected to double their populations in the next 30 years, meaning they'll have more than 200 million people each. As of 2023, the average population growth rate for Africa is 2.45%. At that current rate, Africa is projected to have 2.8 billion people by 2050 and more than 4 billion people by 2100. The reason behind the population increases is associated with 2 variables, birth rates and total fertility rates. Birth rates are defined as the number of live births per 1,000 people, while total fertility rates are the average number of babies born per woman. In Africa, both are high. Niger has the highest birth rate and total fertility rate in the world, with 46.86 live births per 1,000 people and a total fertility rate of 6.73, meaning a woman will have an average of nearly 7 children. Angola, another sub-Saharan African nation, is second with birth rates and total fertility rates, both at 41.42 live births per 1,000 people and 5.76 as a total fertility rate. In fact, of the top 10 nations with birth rates and total fertility rates, all of them are in Africa. The most populated nation of Nigeria ranks 18th with birth rates of 34 live births per 1,000 people and 15th with total fertility rates of 4.57. And the Democratic Republic of Congo, 4th in African population, is ranked 7th with birth rates at 39.64 births per 1,000 people, and 3rd with total fertility rates at 5.56. With figures like this, Africa is going to continually increase its population for the foreseeable future. Now that we have talked about the demographic statistics of Africa, what physical and human geographical factors will change with an increasing population? Let's start with the physical factors. Since many African nations are composed of poor developing countries, ecological degradation and pollution are major problems. Nigeria has one of the world's highest deforestation rates, with the loss of more than half of its primary forest in the last 5 years alone. The Congolese rainforests in Central Africa have been deforested at rates that are increasing steadily every year. There are two major reasons for this occurring: agricultural needs and urbanization. With rapidly growing populations, there is more of a need for land for farming in cities. Deforestation leads to significant issues, including a loss of biodiversity, which leads to the extinction of certain species. In addition, deforestation leads to climate change, as forests hold a lot of carbon, and when trees are cut down, the carbon is released into the atmosphere, increasing the rates of carbon dioxide. Directly, air pollution and water pollution are major issues in Africa. Many African cities experience high levels of air pollution due to factors such as industrial emissions, vehicle exhaust, and the burning of biomass for cooking and heating. This has adverse effects on air quality and public health, leading to respiratory diseases and other health problems. Water pollution is a significant concern in Africa, primarily due to the inadequate sanitation systems, industrial discharges, and agricultural runoff. Contaminated water sources contribute to the spread of waterborne diseases and can have detrimental effects on aquatic ecosystems. There are several human geographical factors associated with a growing African population. Some of the human factors are related to physical factors, such as pollution. As said before, respiratory illnesses from air pollution can affect the health of humans, leading to a sicker population. Water pollution leads to the spread of waterborne diseases such as cholera, dysentery, and typhoid. When contaminated water is consumed, people can fall ill from these conditions and sometimes die. With all pollution-related illnesses, the most vulnerable are immunocompromised people, such as the elderly and very young, as well as pregnant women. This leads to a very high infant mortality rate, as the average for sub-Saharan Africa is 52 deaths per 1,000 births, a 5.2% fatality rate. In a nation such as Japan, the infant mortality rate is 2 deaths per 1,000 live births. Although a growing population may fuel GDP growth, will this growth be quick enough to keep up with the growing population? There may be a problem with this. Currently, the GDP of Nigeria is $1.36 trillion, which places it 27th in the world. However, per capita incomes, which are estimated by dividing the population into the GDP, is only $6,122 a year, 127th worldwide. For Africa, this per capita income is higher than the average. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the GDP is $128 billion, 90th in the world, but the per capita income is just $1,327 a year, nearly last. Now, much of Africa's economy is associated with the fluctuating commodity market, which involves natural resource extraction, such as oil, natural gas, and valuable minerals. Many Africans work in these industries, but are heavily exploited and paid extremely cheaply. With growing populations, more people will need work, especially young Africans who represent most of the population. But with internal geopolitical corruption, more individuals will be exploited for cheap labor. This exploitation leads to the next couple of points, which is recourse to illegal activities and emigration. Because of the lack of suitable employment opportunities, many African youth become involved in illegal endeavors, such as international scams, selling drugs, and the nations with larger Muslim populations joining of terrorist organizations. This ultimately leads to a breakdown in family structure and other societal issues. Emigration out of Africa is occurring at a high rate. Many young Africans are heading elsewhere for better opportunities, including the many rich European nations such as Italy, Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and Scandinavia. Some are going there legally, and some are arriving illegally, leading to dangerous and sometimes deadly excursions across the Mediterranean Sea. One thing is certain, and that's that Africa's population is growing substantially. By 2100, it may be the world's most populated continent with over 4 billion people. However, population projections only give us an estimate of what might occur given the current trends. Current trends can change with physically and human-induced curveballs, such as more frequent famines from climate change, rampant geopolitical instability leading to possible genocides, and more pronounced deadly viral outbreaks such as Ebola, which is a common viral problem particularly in West Africa. Population growth plus problems may unfortunately lead to unfortunate consequences. Thank you so much again for watching this week's episode. If you'd like to leave a comment, please do so in the comment section below. Remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel, Our World, Our Planet, Our Home. Until next time!